Hello everybody, it's Brenda. I'm here today to read the other half of my story, 50 Fun Things to Do When You're 50. Leftover from yesterday, here we go. To ski or not to ski? I'm floating in the middle of a lake, looking back at a speedboat from between the tips of two water skis. It's like riding a bike, they say. Just hang in there and you'll all be fine. They say, just keep your life vest on. I think just keep your bathing suit on. Watching the youthful play and hearing the delighted yelling of other boaters was got me into this mess in the first place, really. No, think, but the boat takes off. I get up on the water after a few tries, and suddenly I'm 30 years younger, yelling with a delight and waving at other kids. And I remember an important lesson. When you're floating in the water, no one can see you adjust your bathing suit. My first recital. I have to admit, I love watching old movies, especially enjoying the scenes involving cocktail parties. Inadvertently, there's a grand piano, and before long, someone starts playing. The guests gather around. I'm left with the one nagging thought: Why did I quit my piano lessons? Then another thought nags at me: maybe it's not too late, but then I picture myself, a 49-year-old woman sitting in front of a bench in someone's parlor struggling to find the middle C. It all seems too ridiculous, or is it? Okay. Fast forward 6 months. I'm now 50 and the proud owner of a used upright. My teacher's name is Marcia. She's 48. I even insist on a little gold star once I master a piece. Oh, and if you aren't doing anything on Saturday, I'll be playing in her yearly recital. I go between 8-year-old Brittany and 12-year-old Emily. Just between you and me, I kicked Emily's butt. Go fly a kite. There's a park near my home, and on some days I'll see several kites flying like paint splatters across the sky. Seeing this always reminds me of my dad when I was in our childhood. When a childhood gift led to so many afternoons of fun with him. We weren't very talented at kite flying, Dad and I, but never seemed to matter. He'd hold up the kite high and I'd run until I'm out of breath, usually dragging it across the ground behind me. But sometimes it would fly. The rare event, it would leave us just standing and staring. I'd marvel at the kite hanging in the air. Dad would tell me what a good job I was doing. Then we'd head home to Mom with tales of great heights. I think I'll soon join them at the park and drag a kite across the ground and maybe add another drop of paint to the sky. Okay. Now we're at the pill jing, the sound of many pills dropping. After our 50th, I resolved to view my meds and other rewards of middle age in more positive light. One morning, as we dumped our daily pills on the table, my husband and I noticed their shapes and colors created a random design. This reminds us of I Ching, the ancient Chinese tradition, casting small sticks, gleaning wisdom from the patterns they create. We decided to invent our own cosmic system, the pill Ching, based upon the way our medication landed before us. His multivitamin rests next to his arthritis drugs. Today's challenge might require extra flexibility. The ginkgo biloba falls beside the lipid pills. Forget the healthy eating for today. Though our ritual has no basis for in medical or psychiatric theory. It starts our day on a funny, mindful track. We're happy to be here and still goofing around after all these years. Good thought. Now we're at the slumber party. Now that our kids are grown, my girlfriend and I have reconstructed an old pastime, slumber parties. We managed to get together twice so far, and each time has been a hoot. In some ways, it's different now than it was then. Nobody stays up the whole night. No bras in the freezer. No writing on magic markers on anyone's face who can't stay awake. I remember those times. We still talk about, there's the same in this way. We still talk about our loved ones, our frustrations, our hopes, dreams, and disappointments. And just like back when we were young, it's nice to know you have a circle of girlfriends we can count on to keep our secrets and who will be there when we need them. In fact, I think I'd have to say it's even better now than back then. We were boy crazy, now we're just nuts. Out on a limb. We renovated our house the year I turned 52. Out with the old, in with the new was my motto. Then one day I remembered the treehouse perched in the enormous oak tree in the corner of the yard. The kids, now grown, had spent hours on the simple platform high among the branches. I wondered if it's still safe. Should I tear it down now or while we're renovating? Get rid of it before it fell apart. I needed to investigate. Once on the top, I found it open and airy. Little space was still in good shape, and the view of the neighborhood looked beautiful from up here. It was peaceful, too. In fact, all I needed was a lawn chair and a book, and I could be perfectly happy. Now the treehouse is all mine. It's my escape on warm summer evenings, a place to relax, a place to read, and a place to feel like I'm a kid again. New strokes. I never learned how to swim as a kid. I was scared of the water. It's no big deal. In our little town in Ohio, no one had a pool anyway. But recently, my husband and I booked a vacation to Cancun. We can do things that now the kids are all grown up. Besides, my granddaughter just joined the school swim team. Who ever heard of a swim team for 6-year-olds? And those two things have made me decide that. Well, it's time for my first swimming lesson next week. It's the kind of thing I used to feel nervous about. But for me, it's the nicest thing about getting older is getting braver. I can just imagine myself making my way with easy strokes through the turquoise water, then turning over to float on my back for a bit, looking up at the blue sky and endless possibilities. Over the hill and down the slide. The year I turned 50, our town built a new aquatic center, complete with no complicated water slides. I have always been afraid of heights and speed, but my 10-year-old daughter begged me to go with her until I thought, okay, why not? How bad can it be? The two of us climbed up and climbed up and climbed up until we got to the slow one. The slow, fat chance. I sat down. Next thing I knew, I was flat on my back, banking around the curves, looking like an Olympic lung racer. Suddenly, I shot off to the end of the slide and careening down for a fraction of a second. I suspended in midair, then I splashed down, creating a huge wave, and come up laughing. Let's do it again, my daughter shouted. And I did. Okay. Word games keep the nerves from fraying. My parents turned 50 within a year of each other and made a pact not to let their brains go soft. They started playing word games every evening before bed. It began as an easy Scrabble obsession. 25 years later, their favorite is Quiddler, which is a form which you form words with cards featuring single letters and a letter combinations. If they have company sooner or later, it's bound to be a a boulder dash. I think it's kept their mind sharp. I pride myself on my verbal abilities, but I played with them on occasion and tense tense me. They are ruthlessly competitive, hilariously trash taking words sharks. People half their age would be happy to have their wit and quick recall. Who knew the fountain of youth could be a direct dictionary setting on a card table? You I didn't know about you, but the fountain of youth I'm happy to drink from too. Okay, I'm gonna have a little swig of water. Sorry about that. Suddenly 6. My dad was the serious adult. Dad worked long hours, didn't disturb dad, or don't disturb dad. Then when he was about 55, we kids were outside having a ruckus water fight, and dad strode silently into the fray, grabbed the hose and doused us all. A huge smile broke out on his face, and he kept doing it. I'm so sorry. A smile broke out on his face as we kept dodging our attacks until finally I had him in my sights, and I ran into the house, warning that my mother would kill me if I got water on the floor. Then he yanked me into the house and jumped outside, sprayed water on me, shoved me back outside, sprayed himself, called Mom, and showed her what I had done. When Mom came out, he was back to being the dad, serious adult, until he started making faces at me behind Mom's back like a 6-year-old he had suddenly become. Wow. Anything hit thin air. My friend Kathleen doesn't do anything halfway, so when she's turned 50, she created her own rite of passage by traveling to Spain by herself. She simply knew she wanted to go someplace she had never been before, someplace far away. Those were her criterias. She fulfilled them. A bus to the famous Lucan ruins. There she spent hiking, reveling in the pure air, and turning into the mystical local flute music she found. The physical space, mental clarity she was searching for after 2 weeks touring other sites in the Adirondack Mountains. She returned to the Midwestern home. The next month, she quit her job. 3 months later, she moved to a city in the Southwest. She never looked back. Hula Hoops. I recently stopped by my sister's house and was surprised to find 3 young daughters playing with hula hoops. They were giggling and wiggling and crazy watching them with those circles of fun brought back decades old memories. I recall how much fun my girlfriend and I would spend hours trying to see who could keep a hoop up the longest or spin the fastest. My nieces were having such great time, I decided to join in. I dropped a hula hoop to my 56-year-old midsection and started swirling my hips. I fell pathetically to the ground. I tried again. Same result. I gave it one last try, slowly wobbled around my waist. I gradually built up a speed. A minute later, I had a hula hoop spinning like I was a kid again. The look on all the nieces' faces made the experience that much sweeter. Chasing storms. As a 50th birthday present to myself, I signed up for a commercial storm chaser tour. You should run away from tornadoes, my wife warned, not try to catch them. 4 or 5 days in June in vans bristling with anticipation, our tour group roamed Toronto Alley from eastern Oklahoma to the Nebraska Panhandle. One evening, we stood in the Nebraska sandhills watching a supercell build. Then weekend, I felt the inflow of warm air gusting into the massive and evil cloud towering overhead, then gradually slipped eastward into the night, sparkling as it threw spears of lightning like the old nurse god. I didn't see any tornadoes that trip, but I spent a glorious hours watching it fruitfully from the sky, connecting with nature's splendor, feeling as times like that I was riding up on that great engine of wind myself. It's an experience that will last me for the next 50 years. My vanishing act. I've spent the last year, my 51st experimenting with individual turns out that I almost completely invisible to everyone between 15 and 35, so I could get away with all kinds of things. I've taken maybe a dozen last pieces of pie. I put empty coffee pots back on the burner. I've invented a rigorously supported casual Tuesday. No one in their 20-year span noticed at first. Was a little hard on the old ego, but now that I'm making it work for me, it's great. Once you must master invisibly, you can nap anywhere. You can drive as fast or slow as you like, and you can eat your lunch in peace, as they said at Woodstock. Maybe it's beautiful if you let it be. Well, the 1 foot span. I'm surrounded by little girls no taller than my armpit. At the age to start ice skating lessons is 4. I am 54. I outweigh the instructor by 40 pounds. Still, even since the year I cut my hair like Dorothy Hamill, I watched creative ice skating and passion and pleasure. Finally, I've decided it's never too late. The brand new beginner ice skater pinch my feet, but determination burns in my heart. I wobble as I swizzle, but the inner Dorothy visualizes the glide to the spiritual 1 foot span. Awkward, but my pluck, if not my age. The coach recognizes a teachable student. I pay attention. I do not whine. I try very hard at my own ambition parent repeating over and over to myself, if you practice, you can do it, and I do. The Good Kid's Day Off. I was brought up to be a good kid. That meant following rules, being polite, and trying to stay out of trouble. And most of the time, I succeeded. Then I turned 50. As luck would have it, my birthday turned out to be an unusually stressful day at work. My spirits were low. Walking home, I noticed a section of sidewalk was recently poured concrete, and I had a smile at the vanity of small handprints already scattered along the edge. How very kid-like. I thought almost evasively, and how nice it must be just to follow fancy like that. And even as I thought of it, I felt the irresistible pull of temptation. Next thing I knew, I was knelt down and added a larger but less important handprint to the bunch. Oops, I'm 50. It's my 50th birthday. The day the kid took a well-deserved day off. Going half the distance. When I was a kid, I rode my bike around the lake a few times every year. Now I'm 55. Even though the 26 miles are pretty hilly, one day I figured I still got what it takes. Of course, I'd barely ridden my bike in 30 years. But how hard could it be? Halfway around the lake, I started thinking that every little pain was big trouble. Maybe this wasn't such a great idea. Maybe my wife was right about training fast. Lucky for me, my sister and brother-in-law live on the far side of the lake from us, so I stopped in for a rest and some water. That turned into a football and beers. My brother-in-law ended up giving me a ride home after the game, but the bike is still at his house. I only got half the distance left to cover. How hard could it be? The blast from the past. When I turned 50, I decided to give myself a blast from the past by throwing the mamas and the papas party. I invited all my friends, married, divorced, single, young, old, male, female. If someone ever heard of the mamas and the papas, I would play some music and wait for a look of recognition.